East floating mountains stretch for thousands of kilometers, with undulating peaks and towers. There are tianhe roaring down in the mountains, clouds and mist rolling like the sea, spirit birds soaring in the sky, and dense forests, fairy tales and bells. The immortal family is born with good weather and good luck. This is one of Jingguo's 3 major immortal sects, the site of Dongfuzong. In that handyman's place, in a medicine field, a young man in Jinhui is seriously weeding and fertilizing the medicinal materials. Blood increasing fruit for half a year, 1 or 2 ashes. An orchid for a year, 1 or 2 ashes. 3 months of blood Ganoderma lucidum, 2 or 2 colimaria. Yang is not easy to carry the wooden barrel, while sprinkling the ashes, while meditating. After spreading the ashes, he carried the bucket and walked to the pool to fetch water. 2 years of Brahma flowers, half a scoop of water. A year of green ox gall, a scoop of water. Herbal epimedium for half a year, without water. 2 hours later, everything was done. Yang Bai smiled and stretched out. He looked around and found that none of the other teenagers had completed the task, so he sat down on a stone not far away, and slowly looked at the encyclopedia of medicinal materials in his arms. Brother De Yi, why are you so fast every time? Aside, a teenager noticed that Yang Bai was sitting leisurely reading a book, shouting with a hint of envy, jealousy and hatred. Yang is not easy to look up, and see him flipping through the encyclopedia of medicinal materials with one hand, frowning and muttering, Mu Linghua sprinkled 1 or 2 columbine. Do I remember it is not 2 columbine? He was babbling, watching and doing it, so it looked like that Yang couldn't easily shook his head and couldn't help saying, it's been 3 years, can't you remember the amount of ashes required for these medicinal materials? No. There are thousands of medicinal materials here, can this be written down? Lin Yuxuan raised his head and looked at Yang Bai with suspicion. Brother Bai, don't tell me, do you remember everything? Use snacks, you can always remember. Yang Bai raised his hand and shook the medical materials with a smile. Isn't it? You really remembered everything. Lin Yuxuan was surprised. It's not that you can't remember, but you don't want to remember. Yang Bai saw that the other teenagers also looked over with surprise and said, I guess you have the same thoughts. Brother is not easy to learn, he likes to specialize in research, and his accomplishments in cultivating medicinal materials are not comparable to us. A teenager laughed. Well, who wants to remember this stuff? It's not about being here for a lifetime. After 3 years, we will all go home tomorrow. In the future, some people in the family will cultivate medicinal materials. The talking boy paused, looked at Yang Bai, and joked, Brother Bai, don't you want to go back to be a medicinal material trainer, do you? Ha ha ha. The teenagers laughed. I have nothing to do, I will remember when I look at it. You guys, instead of resisting it, why not embrace it? In fact, being a handyman is also fun to be a handyman. Yang Bai laughed. Oh, it's still not easy to live out of a high state. In the same sect, when I think of others cultivating immortals, and I am weeding and dusting ashes here, my heart feels panicked. How can I remember the knowledge of medicinal materials? Envy, why don't you have no spiritual roots? Hurt. You are the same people who have fallen into the world, don't say such things that make me sad, don't your heart hurt? It's hard for everyone, just go home with a fairy skin. Everyone heard the words and shook their heads, their eyes dimmed, with a trace of unwillingness, and a trace of confession. In the world, they are all respected family princes, but because they don't have spiritual roots, they can only be handymen weeding in this East Fuzong. Eastern Fuzong's handyman disciple is only the bottom of the sect, but when he leaves the sect, he is a gilded and silvered immortal disciple with a noble status. They stayed in the sect for 3 years, and when they returned, they were the best heirs to the clan chief. Qin put on the fairy skin of Dong Fuzong disciple, no matter what you do in the future, there will be endless benefits. After all, they know that there is no hope of cultivating immortals. They are not here to be handymen, but to plate immortals, make friends, open doors, and establish a social circle that is difficult for ordinary people to reach. The classes in this world are cruel. They have been shaped since the beginning. The top level among mortals will always be their mortal forces. And above the mortal power is the cultivation family, and above the cultivation family is the Xiaoxian sect. The founders of the Xiaochen family are almost all from the Xiaoxian sect, and 99% of the disciples recruited by the Xiaoxian sect are from the Xiaochen family, which is a closed loop. Because mortals will never be able to cultivate. Because the descendants of mortals will never be born with spiritual roots. Dogner's interpretation of performance in this world has reached the extreme, and blood inheritance is the most important in this world. Ordinary people want to counterattack, but the ancestor's grave smokes, and the fairy gives birth to heirs. This is similar to the story of the three Madonnas and Lu Chenxiang. This is the other 10.10% fate. But this kind of fairyland will not appear once in hundreds or maybe thousands of years, it is too rare. How can there be so many fairy tales in love with mortals in this world? That's just the comfort of mortals. Yang Bai, these children of aristocratic families who have no spiritual roots, come to this immortal cultivation sect to plait a fairy skin and go back, even if they have completed the task. After, they are the agents of the sect in the secular world, and the defenders of the secular order. Mortals, mortal forces, cultivating families, cultivating sects, this is the solidified class of this world. The way of living and the relationship of interest are the basic rules of this world. It is more difficult for a mortal to break this kind of solidified class than to climb to the sky. Almost from birth, he is doomed in his entire life. How to live and what to live can be predicted. But Yang Bai is unwilling to go through a journey, if mediocre for 100 years, wouldn't he want it? He didn't see the loss and sigh of other people in his eyes. Looking at the endless clouds above his head like a sea, his heart became wider and wider. Because he has the secret of hope in him. Plaiting fairy skin? No, I want to, please that way to become a fairy. He subconsciously touched his chest. There is a utensil there, one that comes with him, one that he has tried for many years, and one that can change his destiny. Every time he touches his chest, his handsome features will show a hopeful smile. Whenever he smiles like this, his own unique ethereal and self-confidence will quietly appear in his eyes. Look, a brother is here. Just as everyone was talking, there were 5 white rainbows galloping in the sky not far away. Looking closer, 5 outer disciples wearing white mysterious clothes, Yujian, flew up. Their clothes are fluttering, like the sun in the morning light, passing through the haze, pulling away the clouds, and bringing light. Of the 5 people who came, the male was beautiful and the female was as beautiful as a fairy. They fell to the ground, snapped their fingers and retracted their swords, floating like a fairy, with an indescribable beauty. The 5 people stood there, standing out like a group of chickens. The difference in status made the many handyman disciples invisibly shorter, and subconsciously put on a flattering smile on their faces. Brother, senior sister. Everyone shouted. Brothers. Not far away, a white-haired old man saw the 5 people on the ground and ran over with an extremely enthusiastic smile. You are the handyman here, I'll pick some medicinal materials, and you can send someone to fetch it for me. A handsome young man took out a piece of paper with the name of the medicinal material and handed it out. It's not easy, you pick it up as written on this. Kong Guanxi took the paper and handed it directly to Yang Bai. Yang is not easy to be familiar with the medicine field, and he would normally leave such things to him. It's not easy, Yuxuan, it turns out that you are assigned to this medicine field. At this time, a young man who was quite out of the dust saw Yang Bai and Lin Yuxuan next to him. Brother Peng. Yang Bai and Lin Yuxuan saw this young man early, but they were low profile and inconvenient to cling to. They only shouted respectfully when the young man took the initiative to speak. The young man in front of him is named Peng Yat, who comes from the Peng family, one of the two major repair families in Pingyang City, and he is very kind. Brother, do you know these two people? The leader young man asked. Yes, we are fellow villagers, the sect who came together 3 years ago. Peng Ye smiled and looked at the beautiful girl beside him. Sister Xiao Xiao also knows them. We are all fellow villagers. Han Xiao Xiao is cold and holy, between her brows, there is a 3-point cold arrogance, wearing a white dress, it seems that she is like a cold plum and proud snow, which is not to be profaned. Known as the number 1 beauty in Pingyang City, she glanced at the two Yang Bai faintly, and said, I know, but I'm not familiar with it. The High Goddess, being able to say the word knowledge has already made Yang Bai a great honor for the two, and even some handy men cast envy in their eyes. Han Xiao Xiao paused, seeming to feel that Peng Ye was a little verbose, and said in a cold tone, Brother Li is still in a hurry to get this medicinal material. You can ask them to get it. It's okay. Senior Brother Li waved his hand lightly. Brother, I'm going now. Yang Bai saw that Han Xiaoxiu's pretty face was impatient, and he turned around to gather medicinal herbs for fear of offending them. After a while, he picked up the medicinal materials and came back and gave them to the senior Li. It's not easy, Yuxuan, it's been 3 years, and you didn't say to come and gather with me. You will leave the sect tomorrow. You can accept these 2 aura pills. You can't absorb the aura, you have this aura pill. It will be easier to cultivate to the innate realm in the future. Peng Ye said with a flick of his finger, and 2 elixirs popped out quickly. Han Xiao Xiao glanced at the 2 of them faintly, and said bluntly, they are a waste of mortals taking Reiki pills, and the mere congenitals are just a few years longer. There is a kind of arrogant superiority between her words and expressions, but everyone feels that there is nothing wrong with what she said. Mortals have lived for hundreds of years, but their cultivators in the Qi state can live for 200 to 300 years. The superiority brought by such strengths really can only make people envious. Brother, this is your cultivation medicine, we can't ask for it. Yang Bai glanced at Lin Yuxuan. It's okay. We are fellow villagers, I naturally want to take care of them. Moreover, your family has made a lot of contributions to my Peng family. This is what you deserve. In the future, my Peng family will need you to bother a lot. Peng Ye smiled lightly. Thank you brother. Yang Bai and Lin Yuxuan looked at each other, and he also heard what he meant. He stopped talking and accepted the medicine. Yet. Peng Ye nodded. Then let's go. In the next moment, the 5 seniors surnamed Li had a flash of inspiration, sacrificed their flying swords, and galloped away through the air. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Flying sword shuttled between the clouds and mist. Han Xiao Xiao glanced at Peng Ye, and said, it's not bad that you usually bother to manage those brothers, and these 2 mortals are also worthy of your elixir. My Peng family's secular industry still needs their 2 families to take care of it. Naturally, we have to give some benefits so that they can do their best. Peng Ye smiled slightly. It's just a mortal force. In order to be able to establish a relationship with the cultivation family like me, it broke their heads. It is their lifelong blessing to be able to do things for the cultivation family like me. How can they dare to slack off? Han Xiao Xiao said coldly. That's how it is said, but only one spiritual pill can buy their lifelong sincerity, why not? Peng Ye then slowly said, there are unpredictable circumstances. 200 years ago, my Peng family encountered an enemy that was nearly extinct. Fortunately, the mortal forces who supported my Peng family desperately hid my Peng family's ancestor who was a baby at the time. The Peng family was able to survive and avenge the death of the year. That's why you got caught up? Didn't they save your ancestors in greed for prosperity and wealth? Do you think they were sincere? Han Xiao Xiao said disapprovingly. Peng Ye was startled, and smiled sideways. Sister Han can understand it this way. I also follow the ancestral motto in doing this. My ancestor of the Peng family once said, "Be kind to others and treat others modestly." The family accumulates good fortune and virtue. It seems that your ancestor of the Peng family really left a shadow back then. Senior brother Li smiled sideways. Isn't it? His ancestor of the Peng family is afraid that his strength and identity are the root of everything. Just like a secular country, the prince who has changed dynasties is always supported by people, and it is nothing more than his identity and status. Han Xiao echoed with a smile. Maybe. Peng Ye smiled non-committal. The sky is getting darker, and all the handymen have completed their tasks and returned to the handyman supervisor. The night is quiet, everyone is already asleep. Inside a wooden house. Yang is not easy, but instead of sleeping, he sat cross-legged and opened his shirt, revealing his chest full of flesh. On the chest, there is a glass bowl that looks like real. With a movement of his mind, the tattoo of the glass bowl instantly lit up, and then turned into a touch of inspiration and rushed to his right hand. The spiritual light dissipated, and there was a substantial glass bowl on the palm of his right hand. It is only the size of a palm, showing the color of glaze, and the bowl has 8 mysterious spiritual patterns on its body. At this time, the entire glass bowl was shining with faint aura, except for a small part of the spirit patterns dimmed. The bowl was in the palm of the hand, and a magical scene appeared. Suddenly, there were many stars of spiritual glow, the color of which was like moon glow, floating towards the glass bowl. Every time the glazed bowl absorbs a little spiritual light, that small part of the dim spiritual veins will be lit up. This little bit of Ling Mang Yang did not easily suspect that it was aura. After several years of experimentation, it was discovered that it might be something more advanced than aura. This kind of spiritual light only appears whenever he takes out the glass bowl, and when the glass bowl turns into a tattoo and returns to his chest, it will absorb the spiritual light silently, without the slightest abnormality. The glass bowl came with him, it was his companion spirit, and it was in communication with him. Holding the glass bowl, he moved his mind and opened the data transmitted by the glass bowl in his mind. Name, Yang Bai Zaihui, the peak of the day after tomorrow Gong method, Tiger boxing glass bowl level, 8 patterns culture, scrap lingon, 99.99/100, progress of cultivating energy accumulation, 92%. The cultivation energy is almost full, and the glass bowl will light up again. It depends on whether or not the spiritual roots can be cultivated this time. Yang couldn't easily take a deep breath, trying to calm himself down. But his slightly trembling body shows that his heart is not peaceful. The Liulai bowl can be cultivated every day, but tonight's cultivation has made Yang Bai the most concerned. This will determine whether his destiny can be changed by this. Whether to embark on the ferry road from now on, or to pack up and go home at dawn, it depends on this time tonight. He was embarrassed and excited, staring intently at the little bit of spiritual light floating into the mouth of the bowl little by little. 92.23%, 92.32%, 92.45%. He looked at the beating data and muttered silently. The glass bowl can automatically absorb the cultivation energy, and the cultivation energy will automatically be full at 12 o'clock in the evening. Time passes little by little, and energy is cultivated and accumulated little by little. An hour later. Progress of training energy accumulation, 96.56%, 96.89%, 97.12%, 98.24%, 99.98%. The closer the training energy is, the faster Yang Bai's breathing becomes. He has been staring at him for another half an hour, and finally, 100%, it's done. Progress of cultivating energy accumulation, 100%. The 8 spiritual patterns of the glazed glass bowl are all lit up, and the whole bowl body lingers with aura. Cultivate spiritual roots. Yang Bai shouted without hesitation. Waste roots are being cultivated. Yang is not easy to see this reminder and his heart becomes tense. Lingan. A kind of thing that allows mortals to cultivate immortality, a kind of thing that can make the status of mortals change drastically. Can a baby like this really be cultivated? He successfully cultivated spiritual roots. The waste spiritual roots are upgraded to Vanpan spiritual roots. Lingan. It's done. Thousands of thoughts in his heart have not yet unfolded, and his uneasy state of mind has not yet risen to the apex. Is this the spiritual root? Yang Bai pinched his thigh severely, the pain pulled him back to reality, his eyes fixed on culture, Fanpan Lingan, 0/100, after staring for dozens of breaths in this way, his face finally slowly showed a brilliant to the extreme smile. He was always calm and couldn't help but screamed in his heart, ah! 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 I finally have spiritual roots too. Yang is not easy to suppress his excitement, his fists are clenched, and his whole body is trembling. After more than 10 years of training, the hope in my heart has not let him down. Lingan. Even the lowest grade mortal spirit root was enough to change his destiny. Practice, see if you can practice. Yang Bai raised his heart again. Lingan only provided him with the conditions for cultivation, and only when he cultivated a spiritual energy could he be considered a true change of fate. As soon as the mind moved, a strange and familiar exercise appeared in the brain. It is the basic practice of immortality cultivation Yin Ling Ju that the handyman disciple can watch and remember. The mind sinks into the Dharma decision, silently recite the formulas, in order to communicate with the surrounding aura and draw the spirit into the body. The first step in practice is to draw the spirit into the body. Attracting the spirit requires the spirit, and only by sensing the aura between the heaven and the earth can the spirit be drawn into the body. And Lingan is the bridge leading to the spiritual energy. Concentrate calmly, conceal the emptiness, in an ethereal state, draw the spirit into the body. Yang Bai muttered the formula silently, sensing the changes around him. But an hour passed. His state of mind was not calm, but he became more upset and dry, his brows furrowed and tightened, he finally opened his eyes and sighed helplessly, after all, I am not a saint. The excitement brought about by the spiritual root level upgrade has made me unable to calm down. I can't do my heart like water. Rather than practice forcibly, why not be happy for a night and try again tomorrow? He wanted to open it too, simply no longer depressed, and fell asleep with a smile on his face. Brother De Yi, get up, we should go through the departure procedures, the family convoy came to pick us up. The next day, Lin Yuxuan got up early and woke up Yang Bai. Yuxuan, you go home first, I plan to go to Mission Peak again. Yang is not easy to open the door. You want to go to Mission Peak again? Lin Yuxuan was startled, thinking of something. Yes, 3 years have passed, and the sect has recruited new disciples. Do you want to go to Preaching Peak to listen to the elders preaching? But, you don't have spiritual roots, you can't sense aura, even if you listen to it 100 times, it's useless. Even if you can't sense the aura, you can't miss the preaching of the elders. After all, the elders of the Golden Core realm only preached this time in 3 years. Yang Bai laughed. Well, then I will go back with the family team after completing the procedures, but I won't wait for you. Lin Yuxuan said. When you went out of the clan, please tell my family car team by the way, so that they don't have to wait for me. Yang said difficultly. Okay. Lin Yuxuan answered, and then left the wooden house. Yang is not easy to slowly raise his head, looking at the stretch of mountains in front of him that has been dyed red by the rising sun, turning over his hands and pulling the wooden house up, walking towards that side with a touch of longing. After an hour of walking, he finally came under the rolling mountains. Looking around, some peaks are full of flowers, some peaks are flying with spirit birds, some are flowing springs and waterfalls, and some palaces are undulating. The most eye-catching thing is the peak in the middle, which is like a sharp sword thrusting into the sky, and the water of the Tianhe on the top of the peak is roaring down like a jade dragon, which is extremely magnificent. That is Mission Peak. Yang couldn't easily walk up the stairs. Along the road, I saw many disciples wearing white mysterious clothes, Yujian flying by, all of them were talents, wearing long gowns dancing in the wind, they were personable, and they were quite generous. I also saw many new handyman disciples and new outer disciples walking between the roads. When Yang Bai rushed to the top of the mountain, he found that many people had been sitting on the wrong side. Those old disciples of the outer sect and inner sect were all sitting on the towering and independent stone pillars in the middle, looking aloof. As for the newly promoted outer disciples and handyman disciples, they are divided into two groups, inside and outside, sitting around the stone pillars. Yang did not find a corner easily and sat down. The morning glow was born, the golden light fell on the top of the mountain, brilliant. The floating mist shuttled around, looking peaceful, like a fairyland. Everyone talked and waited. Suddenly, brush! The brilliance flashed, and a long rainbow flew in front of him, and it landed on the highest stone pillar on the top of the mountain. The light was condensed, and an old man with white beard and hair in a fairy style appeared. "See the elders!" Everyone immediately got up and saluted. "Hee, no need to be polite, let's sit down and talk, there is no difference between high and low." The elder sat cross-legged, with a cool breeze blowing over his beard, unable to open his half-squinted eyes, dressed in a white robe, surrounded by clouds and mist, as if the road soared. The elders of the Golden Core realm taught, this is a rare opportunity that everyone cherishes. They are refreshed, calm down, and wait to listen to the lecture. What do you think is practice? When the elder saw that everyone was quiet, he said, "Practice the exercises, absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and achieve immortality." Someone replied, "Cultivation is the fighting method. Cultivation is self-cultivation. So, what do you want to fix?" The elder said again. "Slim and long life. Xiu is invincible. Repair Xiao Ao. Is this the way you want to cultivate?" "Elder, what is your way?" "The way an old man cultivates is called fighting. If you want to live forever in your life, you must learn to fight. If you want to have no taboos and avoid all evils, you must learn to fight yourself. Learn to fight with people. If you want to stand upright in your life, you must learn to fight with the sky. Fighting against yourself, fighting against others, fighting against the sky, there is endless joy." Elder Gujing Wubo, his voice is calm, without any emotions, it seems that at this moment he has integrated into his own practice career, and everyone hears it in a hurry. The essence of spiritual practice is actually to borrow strength from heaven and earth to strengthen one's body. Cultivation is nothing more than the process of receiving qi. Longevity is nothing more than the process of spiritual transformation. The peak of cultivation is not only the change of qi, but also the transformation of the human body. The first state of practice is the state of practicing qi. If you want to practice qi, you must first feel the qi, and use the exercises to sense the aura of heaven and earth, and make it resonate with yourself. As the saying goes, humans have fate and energy, and they can only be guided into themselves if they are recognized by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It's hard to get it, it's hard to get it. This is the first step that resonates with the aura of heaven and earth, and it's hard to do it. Although some people have spiritual roots in their bodies, it takes several years to sense the aura, some I can't even sense it for a lifetime, so sad. Sometimes the old man is also very envious of the various innate bodies in the legend. The soul of those people is the sky, and the body is the earth. They are in the state of psychic all the time, and they can automatically lead the sky and the earth without the guidance of the exercises. Spiritual energy rushed to come, the mother was pregnant in the womb, and she was born as the master, so she is the darling of the heaven. Hiss! That innate body is so powerful. Those innate bodies have unparalleled innate spiritual roots, and they practice for thousands of miles, and they are naturally powerful." The elder smiled and continued to preach. An hour later, the sermon ended. Elder looked down and said, "Now is the time for answering questions. If you have any questions, you can ask." A few people hurriedly asked questions, and the elders answered them one by one. As the questions decreased, everyone slowly became immersed. During this process, Yang Bai focused on listening to the lecture, and gained a lot, and many puzzles became clear. All of this opened a brand new door for him, and he seemed to know the world clearly for the first time. It was a long time in a flash. The people on the top of the mountain seemed to not feel the passage of time, and were completely immersed in their thoughts on practice. Suddenly, the elder interrupted everyone's contemplation. "Seeing what you all understand, now you can try to communicate the spiritual aura of heaven and earth. There is a Ling Ling Ju engraved on the rock wall in front of the cliff. It is a basic exercise for slinging stones and asking for directions. I must have written it down when you came. Now you can try to run the exercises to see if you can attract the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into your body." Although the newly promoted handyman disciples have no spiritual roots, they can still remember and comprehend the exercises. This is of great benefit to your future mental improvement. Elder said slowly. Some new disciples from the outer sect heard this and did not sense the aura, but smiled and directly called up the aura to play at their fingertips. They all come from the Cultivation family, they have been in contact with Cultivation very early, and most of them have reached the 3rd or 4th level of Qi training. There are only a few disciples who have spiritual roots who have not practiced, and some have spiritual roots but cannot sense aura. As the elder's voice fell, these people closed their eyes like Yang Bai, meditating silently, and carefully sensing the aura of the day. An hour later. "Oh! I couldn't sense the aura of heaven and earth again." The voice rang not far away, and Yang Bai, who also didn't sense the aura, could not help but opened his eyes and saw a young man in a white mysterious clothes bowing his head and sighing to himself. Did not even the members of the Cultivation clan succeed? Yang Bai was startled. "Be calm, don't be impatient, you have spiritual roots, you can definitely do it." The elder noticed him and comforted. "Ah! Elder, I have sensed the aura of heaven and earth." "Yes, you will continue to motivate, and when it is over, I will put the roots in the mogu for you." "Ah! I also sensed that the aura of heaven and earth is attached to my skin and I want to drill into it." "Not bad. Not bad." The elder smiled and nodded. "Well, am I the one who has spiritual roots?" in the elder's mouth, "but it takes several years to sense the aura? Why can't the aura of the day be sensed?" Someone sighed. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. There are continuous successes and failures around, and Yang Bai's mood also has slight fluctuations. You have spiritual roots in your body, but you can't sense the aura. It's because you haven't entered the ethereal realm, and you can't calm down, so you will fail. The elder said. The heart is not still? The realm of ethereal? Is quietness the key? Hearing the words of the elder, Yang Bai fell into contemplation. Has cultivated spiritual roots for more than 10 years, and he has already reached the state of not being arrogant or impatient. Now possesses spiritual roots, which makes his state of mind to a higher level, reaching a state where his heart is like still water. From no hope to hope, after more than 10 years of development, he has become calm and confident. At this moment, he simply put everything aside, not thinking about it, and slowly, he calmed down. The wind blew gently, as if dancing on the shoulders, taking away the sleeping dust, blowing away the water vapor on the face. He felt that he was the air, sometimes floating and sometimes quiet. There is an ethereal in his mind at this moment, following the wind into the world. He perceives that there seems to be a mysterious gas between heaven and earth. They are sometimes naughty, sometimes cute, sometimes domineering. They are like elves dancing, joyful, reaching out but unable to touch them, but their sense of spiritual consciousness is extremely clear. Slowly. It is not easy for Yang to feel that his head is wrapped in something. The feeling is like the wind blowing across his face, the touch is so real, but he can't see it when he opens his eyes. Hey? It's kind of interesting, the heaven and the earth are condensed, and 3 feet of flowers grow on top of the head. I didn't expect that there is a seedling that can be cultivated hidden in the handyman. On the stone pillar, the elder's eyes brightened. Come here. The elder speaks the law with ease, and his voice is flat, but like Hong Zhongdalu, it echoes in Yang Bai's mind. Yang Bai felt inexplicable in his heart, opened his eyes, and subconsciously looked at the elder. Just stood up, and was pulled close to the elder by a gentle force. A real person of the Golden Core realm was in front of him, and Yang Bai couldn't help but give birth to a sense of sincerity and fear, and immediately bowed respectfully, "Elder. Sit down, I watch the flowers grow on your head, the spiritual energy is condensed and not dispersed, I must have sensed the spiritual energy," the elder said in a warm voice. Yang was not easy to hear the words and was overjoyed, and quickly sat down cross-legged. He recalled the state just now, the whole person fell into the ethereal, and he perceives a mysterious gas. Hearing what the elder said, it should be aura now. He is a handyman who actually sensed aura? How is it possible? Some of the outer disciples who have not yet sensed the spiritual energy have a wrong face, their faces are blue and red, ashamed, and they are even more upset at this time. The disparity in status between the handyman disciple and the outer disciple brought about a great difference in superiority, so that they could not wait to find a place to sow down. As for those handyman disciples, they all cast envy, more of them gritted teeth and red eyes. It's really strange that you, a handyman disciple, sensed spiritual energy. Elder smiled and looked at Yang Bai. Not only was the disciple surprised, but even he was a little surprised. Because every disciple who enters the sect will undergo a spiritual root test. The sooner the potential is measured, the sooner it can be cultivated. No one would joke about this kind of future. I'll touch the bones for you, and see what your qualifications are. The elder's voice just fell, and in an instant, Yang Bai felt a sense of being seen through. A strange power scans back and forth in the body. It seems that there is no way to hide all the secrets in the body. Yang couldn't help but feel tight, afraid that the elders would discover the secret in his chest. As soon as his worries arose, the physical abnormality disappeared. Yang couldn't easily know that the old man had stopped, so he couldn't help but looked at him nervously. I saw the elder's face a moment of stun, and a moment of regret. There was a tendency to hate iron but not steel. Yang Bai feels nervous, did he find something? The elder slowly stretched out his right hand and pointed at Yang Bai with his index finger. The expression on his face changed uncertainly, and he said, You have a physique like you are rare in thousands of years. What? Rarely seen in thousands of years, is he innate? The crowd around was commotion, and some bosses with open mouths seemed to swallow Yang Bai. Yang Bai had long learned to watch his words and looks, staring at the face of the elder. He was not happy at this time, because he seemed to understand the meaning of the elder. The old man retracted his fingers, brushed his sleeves, and sighed softly, You are a rare 5-element spiritual root, but this aptitude is a bit too bad, saying that your ordinary spirit roots belong to low-grade. Sorry for the word inferior. It turns out that his spiritual root belongs to the inferior in the ordinary grade. I thought he was an innate body. There was an uproar around him, whispering. Thank you, Elder Mogu. Yang Bai's expression remained unchanged, he had already expected it. More than 10 years of spiritual root cultivation has already polished his impatient mood as if looking through the autumn water to be extremely calm. The days when there was no hope in the past have survived, and now he can see the hope, and he will not be discouraged. No wonder you will become a handyman. I think that the previous disciples didn't touch your roots. It's no wonder but your qualifications are a little too bad, and it's normal that they can't figure it out. The elder looked at Yang Bai faintly, and saw that his expression was indifferent, without the slightest frustration, and he couldn't help but nod in his heart, this child has a good mentality, and it's not bad. So he said, although the roots and bones are the foundation of cultivation, the will and mentality are also an indispensable and important part. You can sense the aura more than some new outer disciples, and it has explained everything. I hope you will not be arrogant and not rash, stick to the Taoist heart. Thank you very much for the elder's teachings, and the disciples will remember them in their hearts. Yang Bai said deeply. Well, go down, someone will take you to the outer door later. The elder said warmly. Thank you, elder. A smile finally appeared on Yang Bai's face. The words of the elder have officially announced that he has become an outer disciple. The elder nodded, and with a wave of one hand, a gentle force sent him to the place. Congratulations, brother! Congratulations, brother! Congratulations, brother! Yang Bai just took a seat, and the surrounding handyman disciples greeted him one after another, hoping to be remembered by him so that he could climb this big tree. In a blink of an eye, his identity changed drastically, and he was called a senior. Yang did not sigh in his heart for a while, as if he was a world away, nodding his head in response, and at the same time, he was more eager to become stronger. Only by becoming stronger can he improve his status and get better treatment. After a while, all the handyman disciples were calm, and they were afraid to disturb Yang Bai's practice so as not to leave a bad impression. At this time, some of the outer disciples who had not sensed the aura quietly frowned and looked over, and stopped talking. Several people hesitated for a while, and finally couldn't help but smile and asked, Junior brother, how do you feel, Reiki? Junior brother? According to the rules of the sect, Yu reads www.yu. Those with high comm strength are seniors. It is not easy for Yang to take the first step and feel angry about success. They should call him seniors. But Yang Bai saw the faint arrogance between their eyebrows and the traces of glare from their pupils, and he also guessed something. They said Junior brother is afraid that it will be difficult to accept the change of Yang Bai's status for a while, and secondly, because of his poor qualifications, he somewhat despises him. Yang is not accustomed to being arrogant, and accustomed to seeing flattery. He has a calm mood and doesn't care about anything. He smiles very calmly, the key to feeling is calm. Quiet. Everyone frowned, muttering in their hearts, and slowly withdrew their gazes. They don't want to ask any more, they are afraid of losing their identity. Yang Bai smiled, how can you not know what they are thinking? Didn't speak any more, didn't want to show how smart he was for fear of being jealous. He took back his mood, calmed his mind, and continued to sense the aura, familiar with the aura, let the aura wrap him, recognize him, and prepare for the later introduction of the aura. Time slowly passed. The sun went down, the elder announced the end of the missionary meeting and said, the disciples who are successful will be led by the outer sect elder to enter the Taoist temple. As for the disciples who are not successful, you need to continue to work hard, or you will be retired by the sect in 3 years. The elder said, some are happy and some are sad, some are happy and some are worried. The joys, sorrows, and joys of the human world are also inevitably staged in this immortal sect. Yang took a deep breath while not easily rejoicing, and looked at the setting sun. He knew that his destiny would rise like the morning sun from tomorrow, and it would shine brightly. Seeking collection, seeking recommendation ticket. Preacher elder escaped from the mountain, and then a white rainbow flew from a distance. The white light dispersed, and a middle-aged man with a face with Chinese characters appeared. He slapped his waist with one hand, an aura gushing out, and then a huge immortal boat appeared out of thin air in front of everyone. The handyman disciple and the unsuccessful outer disciple go down the mountain by themselves, and the outer disciple who feels successful enter my immortal boat, I will take you to the Taoist temple. The middle-aged man said in a solemn voice. Elder Lao is escorted. The disciples from the outer sects saluted, and then all entered the immortal boat. You are the handyman disciple that Uncle Mo said, so you should go in too. The middle-aged man looked at Yang and said. Thank you, the elders. Yang did not bow easily and also boarded the immortal boat. A group of handyman disciples glanced at Xianzhou enviously, and turned back down the mountain unwillingly. As for the outer disciples who have never felt successful, their eyes are red, and there is deep shame and envy. The middle-aged man saw that everyone had entered the immortal boat, so he drove the immortal boat out of the air, and in a blink of an eye he came to a large hall. He took the Xianzhou away, and everyone showed up, and then solemnly said, the journey of cultivating immortals is extremely difficult and dangerous. It is not a great opportunity, great fortune, and great wisdom. Today, more than 100 foundation masters of our sect are here to choose disciples. Whether you can become their disciples depends on each good fortune. After finishing speaking, the middle-aged man threw a jade talisman into the sky. The jade symbol turned into a huge white crane and rushed into the sky, then burst out on the dome, turning into a group of dazzling white lights and rushing to the peaks in all directions. Within a few dozen breaths before and after, I saw a cluster of visions in the sky, with more than 100 rays of various colors blasting from all directions, coming with a thunderous force, and the momentum was as big as the blue sky. Yang is not easy to wait for someone to take a look, and he knows that someone is coming, his breathing can't help but speed up. Those who escaped light fell from the sky and landed directly in front of the main hall, turning into a foundation building master with a fairy style. How powerful is the master building foundation? With more than 100 gazes, everyone didn't dare to look up and look at him. The aura of an absolute master made everyone feel a little breathless. But they quickly reduced their breath. Junior brother Huang, how many disciples have you recruited this time? A beautiful plump young woman asked with a smile. A total of 4,232 people were recruited this time, and 189 people were unsuccessful. There are a lot of good seedlings, even. The middle-aged man paused, revealed a mysterious smile, and showed off his suangsu. Even what? When everyone saw him, their pupils gathered a little and stared at him. A perfect spiritual root owner also appeared this time. The middle-aged man said every word. What? Perfect spiritual root? Where is he? All the masters were shocked, and their penetrating eyes swept across the crowd. Senior brothers, don't look at him, the man has been taken away by the ancestor himself. The middle-aged man shook his head and said. The ancestor took it away. Everyone was taken aback, and then they nodded in relief. Such good seedlings can't be taught by them. If they fall into their hands, it would be a misunderstanding. Because the spiritual root level is divided into 6 levels, waste, ordinary, good, best, perfect, innate, and so on. With a perfect spiritual root, he already has the prerequisites for becoming the ancestor of the nascent soul. As long as the follow-up resources keep up, the nascent soul realm is almost a certainty. An ancestor of the Yuanying realm is a giant everywhere, and can protect the sect from foreign enemies for more than 1,000 years. If you can't transform the gods, the cultivators in the nascent soul realm of this ordinary practice world can cross and walk in all directions. It's no wonder they were so shocked when they heard of perfect Lingam. After all, they have the potential to become the ancestor of Yuanying. All the disciples heard it with envy. The disciple who was accepted by the ancestor has almost ascended the sky in one step. All kinds of resources are thrown on him, and he will lack the joy of cultivation. Well, time is precious, I will go back to do alchemy later, let's quickly choose someone. After finishing speaking, a long-faced monk who looked cold and stern, and immediately escaped into the hall. A group of Master Zuji glanced at each other and rushed in. There are 108 foundation builders. If you can be accepted by them, the journey of cultivation will be easier in the future. If there is no such immortal fate, in the future, except for the monthly statutes issued by the sect. Besides, you have to rely on you to earn contribution points. The middle-aged man said. Zongmen 108 peaks, every peak master is a master of foundation construction. If you can worship them and be guided by them, it will be infinitely useful, and your practice will be thousands of miles per day. A disciple said excitedly. Seeing that the disciples became excited, the middle-aged man said, the disciples who have the best spiritual roots go in. 100 disciples walked out and walked into the hall. Dozens of breaths passed. The middle-aged man said again, the disciples who have good spiritual roots go in. More than 1,000 disciples walked in. Soon, I saw dozens of escape lights rising from the main hall, rushing into the sky, and disappearing. What? Are those elders no longer elected? Seeing this, some of the outer disciples who had not yet entered could not help but become nervous. The major peak masters will only select a few disciples with better aptitude or more desirable, and most of us will not be selected. A disciple sighed. Sure enough, as soon as his voice fell, most of the disciples who had entered before came out dejected. The middle-aged man seemed to be accustomed to it, and continued, the disciples who have the spiritual roots of the mortal grade go in. This time, the remaining thousands of people squeezed in mightily, all wanting to stand in the forefront for the major peak owners to see and find a trace of fairy tales. Yang is not easy to follow everyone into the hall. Yu reading www.yunsha.com looked up and saw a group of people on the foundation sitting in the air, looking back and forth, as if looking for a favorite disciple. Seeing such a scene, he couldn't help but get nervous, because he also wanted to be selected by the elders. If someone taught, who would want to work hard alone? Who doesn't want to be taught by a master? You can see the longing in his heart by squeezing forward quietly. No one cares about face at this time. I once got a thunder attribute technique when I went out to practice before. You have Lei Lingan just suitable for cultivation. Would you like to worship me as a teacher? I do, I do. The disciple jumped up excitedly and shouted. Very well, let's go. The white-haired old man took a handful of him and immediately took him away. A rare disciple of Lei Lingan appeared, and the old man's spring thunder is also considered to be a successor. A beautiful woman smiled. There seems to be an ice attribute disciple below, and your luck seems to be good too. A middle-aged man with a sword eyebrow star smiled. You found all of this? The beautiful woman smiled, looked down, and asked aloud, would you like to worship me as a teacher? The disciple is willing. A beautiful girl stepped forward and nodded in response. Very good. The beautiful woman smiled very satisfied. Let's not waste time, just choose. A burly man said loudly. I didn't see them speak, I saw that some of the outer disciples below were suddenly excited, and then they walked forward and waited obediently. How can everyone not know that a group of masters have spoken to their spiritual knowledge, and seeing that they have not been selected, they can't help but become anxious. After all the masters had chosen their disciples, they were all satisfied. The next moment they looked at the last middle-aged man, who had no wave of expression on Gujing, his eyes were deep and Ling-ran, and his expression was half-hearted. Brother, then we will leave first. Yet. The middle-aged man responded softly. When everyone saw that this was not staying, the selected disciples flew into the sky. In the sky, several people murmured, I don't know why Brother Chunfeng must choose disciples with 5 spiritual roots. It is also a good choice to accept a few disciples with 5 single spiritual roots. I heard that Brother Chunfeng's practice is called 5 Elements Gong, which includes the 5 attributes of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. Although they are only used for practicing Qigong, they are combined together. It becomes the foundation building technique, which is extremely mysterious. If you only practice one of the attribute techniques alone, the effect will be greatly reduced, and the upper limit will be the peak of Qi training, so he will not accept a single spiritual root as an apprentice. If this is the case, it is meaningless to choose a disciple with a single spiritual root or multiple spiritual roots as disciples. That's right. But Brother Chunfeng came today with a choice, but I heard that junior brother Huang said that the disciple's aptitude was extremely poor, but his comprehension was fair. He just didn't know senior brother Chunfeng, who was always strict and dedicated to perfection. Will he be accepted as a disciple? Maybe. After all, disciples with the roots of the 5 elements are not easy to meet. Even if they have poor aptitude, they will be included in the school. I guess he will be a registered disciple. Oh, we're at Yujianfeng as we're talking, let's separate now, and I will give my new apprentice a good lesson this time. Okay. The light scattered and flew to all sides. Looked at the elders who had fled. Entering the Taoist temple, it was quiet. Everyone held their breath and looked nervously at the only elder who had not left. He become everyone's last hope. Come on here. The middle-aged man opened his eyes, looked down, and spoke slowly. There was a buzzing sound in his head. Yang Bai's spirits shook, his eyes gleamed, and he was a little overjoyed. Quickly stepped forward and bowed respectfully, "Elder." The middle-aged elder was unsmiling, without sadness or joy, and could not see the slightest change in emotions. Although Yang Bai was happy in his heart, he did not show it. Being cautious, he just stood quietly, waiting for the elder to make arrangements. Would you like to enter my 5 elements peak?" The middle-aged man with black hair and white eyebrows, delicate skin, looks very handsome, simply wore a white robe, but gave people a smell of dust and immortality. In those hundreds of people he is the most immortal among Master Zuji. But his immortal exudes a faint sense of coldness, as if to reject people thousands of miles away. Standing in front of him, the expressions of everyone subconsciously become awe-inspiring. Yang was not easy to hear him speak. He was overjoyed, and hurriedly said, "The disciple is willing." "Disciple? Your aptitude is too bad, and you don't deserve to be my disciple. If you want, you can join me as a handyman at the 5 elements peak." The middle-aged man looked at Yang Bai lightly. "Miscellaneous, miscellaneous." The calm Yang Bai broke the defense in an instant, and he was taken aback. "What? You don't want to?" "Elder, I am willing." "Elder, I am willing too." Suddenly, many self-recommended voices rang around. Yang calmed down uneasy, and Yu Guang looked at the middle-aged man, thinking to himself. A master of foundation building, if he finds a handyman, it is estimated that even a disciple with the best spiritual roots will agree without hesitation, but why does he choose me? He is indifferent to other disciples, and he seems to be waiting for me to answer from his appearance. Is there any merit in me? Yang is not easy to turn his brain, looking back and forth at himself. Is it because I am handsome? Do not. Is it because of spiritual roots? He settled down, and instantly thought of the words of the preaching elder, "You are a rare 5 spirit root." Thought of the only possibility that made sense. It seems that the value of the inferior spiritual roots of his 5 elements is greater in his eyes than those of the disciples who have the best spiritual roots. A master of foundation construction values himself with inferior spiritual roots. This is my blessing and opportunity. Even being a handyman is better than other casual practitioners. So, Yang Bai suddenly raised his head and said loudly, "I am willing." "Okay." A gleam of light flashed in the middle-aged man's eyes, and he nodded secretly for his calm performance. If ordinary people heard him, they would have bowed their heads with excitement. How could they stand and think so calmly? At the moment, his figure shook, and he fell in front of Yang Bai, grabbing his shoulder, and rushing to the sky. This kid with inferior spiritual roots is really lucky. He turned out to be a handyman under the elders of Chunfeng. Someone gritted his teeth. It's just a handyman, not a disciple, so there's no need to be jealous. If you don't get it, then you won't get it, so you can feel more at ease. Someone said relieved. Yes, look at the opening point. The middle-aged man grabbed Yang and it was not easy to break through the air. The speed was so fast that the clouds around him and the mountains below were blurred. My name is Chun Feng, you can call me the Peak Master. Chun Feng simply opened the mouth, seeing that Yang was not easy to sneak at him with the light. Peak Master, my disciple is called Yang Bai. Yang Bai immediately replied respectfully. Yet. Chun Feng nodded slightly, stopped abruptly, and said with a finger, the 5 elements peak is right below. Yang is not easy to move, looking down with full eyesight, what is greeted is a towering peak, shaped like a dragon, winding upward. Inside, you can faintly see spiritual birds spreading their wings, you can see magnificent waterfalls rolling down like a Milky Way, you can see strange flowers and trees, you can see the medicine field palace, and the peaks are very majestic. Go down, someone will come to lead you. Chun Feng didn't take Yang down easily, but sent him a soft aura and sent him to the top of the mountain. Yang did not easily look up and found that Chun Feng had not come down, but had fled into the distance. You are the younger brother who just came. Suddenly, a voice rang behind him, and Yang Bai looked back and found a young man standing in front of him. He has a smile on his face, gentle and elegant, like a scholar, overall he feels gentle and comfortable. I have seen my brother, I am just a handyman accepted by the Peak Master. Yang responded politely, not easily. Handyman. The young man took a moment to look at Yang Bai, and said, you can be favored by the master, and you must have the roots of the 5 elements. Brother, how do you know? Yang Bai had guessed before. Seeing the youth say this at this moment, Yu read www.yuyuganshu.com pretending to be confused and asked. Because the master only accepts people with the roots of the 5 elements as his disciples, if you count you, we are only 5 in the 5 elements peak. The young man smiled, maybe your aptitude is too bad, and the master is not willing to accept you as a disciple, but the exercises will still pass on part of you. As for whether you will become a master and apprentice in the future, it depends on your own efforts. Why only accept people with the roots of the 5 elements as disciples? Yang was puzzled. Because of the practice, people with the roots of the 5 elements have the best results when practicing the master's practice. Said the young man. That's the case, thank you brother for clearing up your doubts. Yang Bai thanked. Come on, I'll take you to settle down first. The young man turned around and took 2 steps, seeming to find something. He turned his head and stared at Yang Bai, and asked suspiciously, Junior, how do you dress like a handyman shirt? My spiritual roots are a bit special. I have been a handyman disciple for 3 years. I was detected by the preacher elder today. I have spiritual roots. Before I can receive the basic supplies of the outer disciples, I was brought here by the Peak Master. Yang did not easily smile awkwardly. So, don't worry, I will help you get it later. The young man said cheerfully. Thank you brother. Yang Bai looked overjoyed. It's okay, this mountain is high and the water is far away, and you can't fly. If you walk to the material hall, it will take several months, which is a waste of time. The young man laughed. Yang Bai nodded in gratitude, and then said, the younger brother is called Yang Bai, and the teacher's name has not yet been asked. My name is Li Yuran. The young man said with a smile. After some contact, he felt a good impression of Yang Bai in his heart. He was polite and sensible but not flattering, which was somewhat in line with his temperament. Seeking collection, seeking recommendation ticket. Brother, come with me. Li Yuran stepped forward and led the way, and the 2 entered the palace. The main hall is the place where the master usually practices. Don't go in without his call. As for the rooms of the outside hall, except for the first 3 rooms, the rest of the rooms are empty. Li Yuran introduced and pointed to the second room of this hippie Andean, that is where I live. As for the 2 sides of my room are the residences of my brother Li Xian and my brother Fang Yuan. Counting you, Our 5 elements peak is only 5 people, so you don't have to be too restrained. Li Yuan looked at Yang Bai and walked him straight into the 4th room. You can live in this room. The beds, bedding, tables, and chairs are all new, no one has used them. Okay, brother. Yang did not easily nod his head, and then asked, Brother, the peak master designated me as a handyman, what do I need to do every day? I don't know about this. I still need to wait for the master to arrange, but we have nothing to do on the mountain. Don't worry. Li Yuan looked at Yang Bai and groaned, we are here to cultivate immortality. Don't put yourself in the role of handyman. In name, you are just a handyman of the 5 elements peak, but when you go out, whoever you call the casual cultivator doesn't care about you. Brother Yishao? Cultivation hard is the right way. Don't think about doing chores so beautifully. Cultivation should be your top priority. Thank you brother for your advice. Yang didn't easily smile in his heart, and he couldn't help but warm up. Brother Li Yuan must have misunderstood his meaning. The reason why he cares about handyman matters so much is because he is afraid that too many chores will affect his cultivation, but he is relieved to hear that. Well, you can walk around first, get familiar with the environment, and I will help you collect the basic supplies of the outer disciple. Li Yuan said, swiping to his waist, a streamer flying sword appeared out of thin air, the flying sword pointed towards the sky, the spiritual light on the sword flashed, just like that, the sword broke through the air and quickly disappeared into the sky. Flying with the sword. I don't know when will I be able to fly with the sword. Yang Bai looked a little excited and waited quietly. After a short while, a white rainbow appeared on the horizon, and it was Li Yuan who had returned to the mountain. He floated down, flipped his hand and took out a cyan bag that resembled a purse. When he wiped it up, a white mysterious garment appeared in his hand. This white swanyi is the symbol of our Dong Fuzong. If you go out wearing this clothes, any force in this scene will be a little bit affectionate. Swanyi has been soaked in herbal liquid, made of special materials, and will not stick to dust. You don't dare to come close, so put it on. He handed it to Yang Bai, and then wiped it on the bag again. A yellow talisman, a white token, and a book with a blue cover appeared. Communication Talisman. Burning this talisman in an emergency can be sensed by the disciples of Dong Fuzong within 100 li. It may save your life at a critical time. You must keep it away. Identity Token. Your personal information has been entered in it, and the contribution points earned in the future can be stored here. This book is called The World of Common Cultivation, and it describes all kinds of things in the common world of cultivation and the common world. The upper reaches of astronomy, the lower of geography, the left knows the world, the right hides the unpredictable mystery. Secret realms, sex, intertwined power relations are involved, you must study carefully, going out to experience in the future will be of great help to you. Li Yuan handed him these 3 things, and then swiped the bag again, and a streamer flying sword appeared instantly. The sword is 2 feet and 8 inches long, and the whole body is milky white, with a faint white halo on the surface. Yang Bai looked at this sword, his eyes lit up. Li Yuan saw his look and chuckled lightly, this sword is called the Xianling sword. It is made from the sect of the Zong men who took the sunken stone from the deep sea, and then blended dozens of precious metal materials. There are 2 formations inscribed in it, namely the first oval sharp formation. First class flying formation. Therefore, this sword can cut iron like mud, and the sword body is tough and not easy to break. Inputting the spirit energy to activate the formation can be used to fly the sword. It is a rare middle-grade magic weapon. For every disciple of the outer sect, a middle-grade magic weapon is equipped. With such a large hand, in this Jingguo, only the 3 major cultivating sects have this ability. This is also the reason why everyone wants to worship the sect. The sect is located above the spiritual veins, which is full of spiritual energy, which is conducive to cultivation, and it has all kinds of attractive cultivation resources. There are also real Jindan preachers from time to time. All kinds of benefits, this is the envy of those casual cultivators. Li Yuan smiled and handed the Xianling sword to Yang Bai. Ding! This flying sword is really extraordinary. Under the flick of my finger, the sound of the sword is crisp and long. You can feel its sharpness just by looking at it. The sword aura seems to pierce my skin. Yang Bai played with the mysterious spirit sword in his hand with joy on his face. He was deeply satisfied with this sword and couldn't put it down. As for this last thing is a storage bag, you can put anything in it in the future. Li Yuan handed the cyan bag in his hand to Yang Bai. Storage bags. Yang is not easy to have bright eyes. When he was on the earth, he had imagined countless times that he had a storage bag that could be loaded with cars, bows, and all sundries. It was simply a great tool for travel. He rubbed it in his hand and looked at it, but he didn't find the opening of the bag. Hehe, I can't open the storage bag if I haven't cultivated the aura. After you have the aura, you only need to input a trace of the aura into the bag, and then the divine sense locks the items that need to be taken out or put in. Retract and unwind freely. Li Yuan couldn't help showing a smile on her face. Thank you brother for telling me. Yang Bai said gratefully. By the way, the space of the low-level storage bag is only the size of a table, and there is no recognition function. In other words, others can open your storage bag when they get it. You must harvest well and don't hang your storage bag in a conspicuous place around your waist, lest others are jealous and covet it and cause unnecessary trouble. In addition, precious things are best kept open, don't put them in a storage bag. Li Yuan reminded, telling his own experience. Yang Bai nodded. Okay, let's go to see the master. Li Yuan suddenly looked at the hall. The peak master is back. Yes, you come with me. Li Yuan took Yang Bai to the main hall, came to the door of the hall, and respectfully shouted, Master, I have brought it. You take him in. A deep voice came out. Let's go in. The two pushed the door and entered, and saw Chun Feng sitting on the futon. Chun Feng looked at Yang Not Easy, and said directly, You cultivate medicinal materials at the handyman's office, so the elixir field in the east will be handed over to you to take care of it. Yes, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com peak owner. Yang Bai answered. He looked at Li Yuan again, as for Yuan, you can leave the medicine field alone in the future, just concentrate on training, and strive to reach the 10th level of Qi training as soon as possible. Yes, Master. Li Yuan nodded. Chun Feng said, raising his hand and popping out 3 light balls. Inside the first 2 light were a jade slip and an ancient book. As for the last light group, there were 10 pills and a round white stone. In the jade slip is Shui Xing Ju, the book is Elixir of Encyclopedia, 10 spiritual pill and 1 spiritual stone are your cultivation resources this month. Take good care of the elixir, if I raise a single elixir, I will drive you out of the mountain. Outer sect disciples only have 5 spiritual chi pills a month, and I will give you 10 per month. Outer sect disciple does not have a spiritual stone, I will give you 1. If 1 year later, your cultivation level has not reached the 3rd Qi training level, I will also drive you out of the mountain. Chunfen's voice and expression are very flat, without any emotional changes. But Yang Bai felt extremely solemn, and he had no doubt that as long as he could not meet the conditions, Chun Feng would immediately drive him down the mountain. Even Li Yuan's expression has changed slightly. Peak Master, don't worry, I will cultivate a good elixir and practice hard. Yang Bai bowed his head and accepted the contents of the light group. Such doubled cultivation resources, this is his supreme chance. With his fist slightly clenched, he secretly vowed that he must seize this opportunity. Okay, let's go down, you can ask Yuan if you don't understand anything in your future cultivation. After Chun Feng finished speaking, he closed his eyes. Li Yuan and Yang Bai saluted him, bowed back, and walked out of the hall. Seeking collection, seeking recommendation ticket. Brother, master does not look like a joke. You will work harder in your cultivation in the future. Li Yuan said sternly, go, I'll take you to the spiritual medicine field in the east. The two walked to the right of the main hall, walked for a while along the flat path covered with grass, and soon came to the medicine field. The medicinal field is not big, and it is filled with all kinds of elixir. Some have flowers and some bear fruits. They have different shapes and different colors. The aroma of various elixir mixed in the air, and after taking a deep breath, Yang Bai felt very comfortable. This is the elixir field. The cultivation of elixir is somewhat different from the cultivation of medicinal materials. Most elixir can absorb the spiritual growth between heaven and earth, and they can grow naturally without watering and fertilizer. Only a few elixir need special methods to cultivate, such as bluegrass needs to be planted in the soil to survive, such as blood flower vines need to absorb blood to grow, such as jade fruit needs starfish sand to survive. Those elixir is not here, so you can rest assured, junior brother. Usually you only need to visit the medicine field often, compare with the elixir de Quan, write down the shape and appearance of each elixir here in each period, and be familiar with it. It's good if you don't make mistakes when you take it. In addition, you need to make an account and report the number of each elixir each month. Some elixir plants are less, and the master will go to find the elixir seedlings to plant them. When planting, you can follow the method in the book, and find me if you don't understand. Li Yuan smiled, this is actually very simple. What the master said before is one to scare you, and the other is to make you take it seriously. He paused, his expression became solemn, and he said solemnly, however, master has always been strict about cultivation, and brother Li Xian, junior brother Fang Yuan, and I usually get scolded. If you can't reach it after a year practicing the third level of Qi, master, he might really drive you away. I will work hard to cultivate and try to stay on the mountain in a year. Yang Bai said quietly. Okay. Li Yuan patted him, brother believe you. By the way, brother, why don't you see brother Li Xian and brother Fang Yuan? Yang Bai asked suddenly. Senior brother Li Xian has reached the peak of the 10th level of Qi training, and he went out to practice and seek a chance to break through. As for junior brother Fang Yuan, he is attacking the 7th level of Qi training in retreat. Li Yuan said. Oh. Yang Bai nodded. Okay, let's go back. Li Yuan and Yang Bai returned to the palace. Late at night. Inside the room, Yang Bai sat cross-legged on the bed and opened the data transmitted from the Li Yuan. Name, Yang Bai Ziowei, the peak of the day after tomorrow gong method, tiger boxing, spirit Yinju glass bowl level, 8 patterns culture, inferior mortal spirit root, 0/100, progress of cultivating energy accumulation, 100% cultivating spiritual roots. He shouted in his heart. Under the cultivation of spiritual roots successful training culture, inferior Van Pinling root, 0.001/100, 0.001? Sure enough, with the improvement of the spiritual root level, the cultivation effect of the 8-patterned glass bowl is a bit weak. Yang couldn't look easily, and couldn't help sighing. According to this training schedule, after more than 200 years, the inferior spiritual roots can reach the subgrade spiritual roots. At that time, Lingen barely counted as normal. But fortunately, the spiritual roots can be cultivated indefinitely. This can be regarded as a gift from God. As for other items, they can only be cultivated once, and the second training will fail. There is also a limit on the number of times the glass bowl can cultivate other items. For example, the 8-patterned glass bowl has only 8 opportunities to cultivate other items. After all 8 training opportunities are used up, only when the cultivation base breaks through can they get another training opportunity. Yes, This is the answer he has obtained from countless experiments over the past 18 years. However, although other items can only be cultivated once, as long as the energy is sufficient, the quality of the cultivated items will be raised to a higher level. For example, the 8-patterned glass bowl can cultivate 1 year of medicinal materials into 2 years of medicinal materials. Can also cultivate a piece of hair iron into 100 forged iron. I believe that one day, Mao Tai will become a treasure. Because the glass bowl is linked to his strength. Once his strength is improved, the spirit patterns of the glass bowl will increase, the number of training will increase, and the things he cultivates will be more advanced. And as the glass bowl spirit patterns increase, the speed of cultivating spirit roots will also increase, and the two are positively correlated. It can be seen that as his strength increases, the role of the glass bowl will become more powerful. So he only has one idea now, that is to become stronger. Became his only desire to become stronger. There are 3 elements to become stronger. One is the aptitude, that is, the spiritual root. The more spiritual energy that a good spiritual root attracts, the faster and smoother the cultivation. The second is the exercise method. The faster a good exercise method refines spiritual energy, the faster the corresponding cultivation speed. And the more advanced the exercises, the more refined the aura is. From the perspective of the aura reserves, combat, and rushing, the pure aura is greatly superior. The 3 are genius. Genius is extraordinary, and it refers to nature, mind, and understanding. People with poor temperament are prone to fall into the magical way, those with poor mind are prone to demons, and those with poor comprehension can't even explore the techniques, so why not practice? 4 efforts. Looking at it this way, Yang Bai is a little pleased, he thinks he has a fair talent. Efforts, he is so poor that he can only work hard. Thinking like this, the blood is on the top. He flipped his hand and took out the jade slip, and with a light press, a light burst out of the jade slip and shot into his eyes. My eyes closed subconsciously and protectively. Suddenly, one by one words formed a mysterious exercise water sing gong. Yang is not easy to study carefully. 2 hours later. He pinched the tactics with both hands, one up and down, located in the pubic area, and the exercises began to circulate with the ups and downs of his breathing. A trace of heaven and earth aura gathered from all around, using the spiritual root as a bridge, entered his body. But Yang Bai looked into the meridians, but he didn't find any aura in it. So he ran the exercise once again, but still did not find any spiritual energy in the meridians. Run several times in succession, Yu reading www.yuuganshu.com clearly felt that aura passed through the spiritual roots and entered the meridians, but he couldn't see it under his inner view. This made him frown, and he wondered if his practice was wrong. He stopped running, and once again studied the exercises carefully. 2 hours later. He was sure that the direction of the practice comprehension was right, but why was there no spiritual energy? He thought about it all over again, determined that his cultivation direction was right, so he calmed down and continued to run the exercises to absorb spiritual energy. Ran more than 100 times in succession, and finally, Yang Bai was dumbfounded and finally found a trace of aura in his danshan. A hint of aura that is several times smaller than a strand of hair. Yang is not easy to twitch the corners of his mouth violently. I just perceive that the spiritual energy has passed through the spiritual roots, how come I can't see it? It turns out that there is only such a trace of spiritual aura? My spiritual root is so bad that it is such a field. At this moment, he had a clear understanding of his inferior spiritual roots, and he sighed, no wonder. No wonder the elders and pure peak masters mentioned that their spiritual roots would have such expressions. Yang Bai finally knew how bad his aptitude was. If it weren't for his strong Taoist heart, he would have been almost forced to retreat by his inferior spiritual roots. However, I finally took this crucial step. Reiki, I also have Reiki. Although Yang Bai shook his head, he was more delighted. At this moment, Yang is not easy. Is also a cultivator. Has since embarked on the road of chasing immortality. Seeking collection, seeking recommendation ticket. I have cultivated aura, now I should be a cultivator in the Qi realm. Yang Bai looked at the water-like aura in his danshan and couldn't wait to open the data. Name, Yang Bai Cultivation, the first stage of Qi training, 1/100, Gong method, Tiger boxing, Ling Ling Ju, water movement Ju glass bowl level, 10 patterns culture, inferior Van Pin Ling root, 0.001/100, progress of cultivating energy accumulation, 10%. Sure enough, I skipped the innate realm and reached the Qi training realm. Even the glass bowl has 2 spirit patterns added. I really want to see the current training effect. Yang is not easy to put away his joy, presses impetuously, a tattoo flashes on his chest, and takes out the glass bowl. Suddenly, a little bit of spiritual light appeared in the room, floating towards the glass bowl. The 10 spiritual patterns on the glass bowl flashed like a breathing lamp, slowly absorbing the magical energy emerging from the heavens and the earth. Although there are 2 more spirit patterns, the glass bowl absorbs energy faster. The glass bowl with 10 spiritual patterns is even more mysterious, and it looks like a rare treasure. Yang did not play easily for a while, then put it away, and continued to practice exercises. A trace of aura continuously converges from all directions, using the spiritual route as a bridge, into the meridians. After refining the exercises, it finally turns into pure water movement spiritual energy and flows into the danshan. One night's practice not only didn't make him tired, but he was more energetic. After more than 10 years of eagerness, he eventually became a practitioner. He cherished the opportunity and worked harder. Practice all night, until sunrise. Then he got up and went to the elixir field to check it, and then he got some food in the kitchen, and then went back to practice again. As for the pure seal of the base building realm, you can inhale the wind and drink the dew. You don't need to eat all kinds of grains, and you can already live without the grain, that is, the gods are commonly known as the immortality. But Li Yuan and others are in retreat. Yang is not easy to fall down, and there is no need to worry about their food. Inside the room, above the futon, Yang is not easy to sit cross-legged, the exercises work over and over again, and the practice lasts till night. A cool breeze blew through the window, and he slowly opened his eyes. Opened his shirt, the tattoo on his chest flashed, and a glass bowl with 10 shining spiritual patterns appeared in his hand. Once the strength is broken, it will increase after training several times. The current colored glass bowl has 10 opportunities to cultivate other items. If these 10 opportunities are used up, then only after breaking through the second level of Qi training can they get the opportunity to train other items. The cultivation energy has been fully charged, and it can finally be cultivated. 10 times to cultivate other items, you can use it carefully. Yang Buletin looked forward to something, and shouted in his heart, cultivate water work. Insufficient training energy, please upgrade the glass bowl level, can't you cultivate it? Yang couldn't keep his eyes fixed, but he was not too disappointed. He had already guessed the result. Took out an aura pill and put it into the glass bowl. Cultivate Reiki pill. The glass bowl flickered, but it fell silent again soon. Insufficient training energy, please upgrade the glass bowl level, this can't be cultivated either. Then, cultivate the spirit stone. He stayed for a while, took the round and radiant spirit stone on the table, and put it into the glass bowl. Insufficient training energy, please upgrade the glass bowl level. Yang is not easy to start, rubbing the crystal clear spirit stone in his hand, and then gently put it down. Then, you can only cultivate spiritual roots. The glazed bowl suddenly shined brightly, and the aura enveloped him. Inferior spirit root cultivation successful training culture, inferior Van Pin Ling root, 0.004/100, 0.004. One training is 0.003 points more than the 8 patterns. After more than 90 years, inferior spiritual roots can become inferior ordinary spiritual roots. It is better than seeing no hope. Yang Bai sighed, comforting himself. He was used to this small sense of gain. Can stand the loneliness before you can see the prosperity. It's just a pity that these 10 opportunities to cultivate other items don't seem to have any effect. Since the upgraded glass bowl did not surprise him, he simply stopped wasting time, settled down, and continued to practice. There is no time for practice. Half a month passed after such a day. In addition to cultivating spiritual roots that will bring him joy every day, there is only cultivation left. On this day, Yang Bai stared at the aura that had hardly changed in his danshan, and fell into deep contemplation. Even a trace of solemnity appeared between his eyebrows. After a long time, he finally exhaled a turbid breath. Sighed, it's hard to practice. It's hard to go to the blue sky. After half a month of cultivation, the aura in his danshan barely showed signs of growth, which made him almost break the defense. In the 5-inch danshan, there is still only a trace of aura that is thinner than a strand of hair. This makes him can't help but deny in his heart, can he really reach the 3rd level of Qi training in a year? 3 levels of Qi training. This is not just a number, the difficulty can be seen from danshan. Danshan is one of the places where the human body contains mysteries. It can hide sumuru and nasturtium seeds as deep as possible, transforming it into a world or even a universe. The first layer of Qi training needs to fill up the 5-inch danshan, and when the aura is full, then break the barrier. At this time, the pubic area will expand to 10 inches. This is not only the expansion of the pubic area, but the barriers of the pubic area are also stronger, and the difficulty of breaking the barrier has more than doubled. At this time, if you want to break through, you don't just need to fill your danshan with aura. It is also necessary to purify the aura in the danshan twice or more times to ensure that more high-quality, high-purity auras can be stored in a limited volume. The chance of breaking the barrier like this is even greater. At this time, the superiority of the exercise is perfectly manifested. The aura that can be refined once in a high-level exercise may be more refined than the aura that has been refined several times with a low-level exercise, which greatly improves the efficiency of cultivation. Breaking through is like drinking water, breaking barriers like rupturing membranes, rampaging, and hitting Huanglong. That's how genius comes. Shui Xingju is only practicing Qigong, and Yang Bai is also not sure how many times the aura in his body needs to be purified to reach the 3rd level of Qi training. However, the key problem right now is that the inferior spiritual roots attract too little aura at a time. Although the efficiency of refining the aura in the waterline art can keep up, there is too little aura to refining once, so that the aura in the body shows no signs of growth. In such a situation, even if it is a poor quality spiritual root with a Wushuan Taoist scripture, it is also tasteless. Yang Bai was once again shocked by the cultivation speed of the inferior spirit root. He helplessly rubbed his eyebrows, took a deep breath, and took out the Reiki pill. He finally knew why the master Feng Feng wanted to emphasize double the pill. It was really that his qualifications were too bad, even if he had a genius brain on his head, it wouldn't work. Holding a milky white rounded pill, he took it without hesitation. The pill melts in the mouth, and the refreshing energy immediately spreads. He no longer hesitates. Yu reads the book www.yuyuganshu.com to run the exercises to refine these energies. A trace of aura that didn't pass through the roots was refined by the exercise method and merged into the danshan. One pill has been refined. A short moment. Yang Bai obviously felt that the aura in his danshan had grown a lot, reaching the size of his hair in an instant. The effect of Reiki pill is immediate. Out of the ordinary. Sure enough, taking drugs is the right way. Yang Bai looked overjoyed, turned his hand and took out an aura pill again and took it again. Another day passed. The 10 Reiki pills obtained from the master Feng Feng and 1 Reiki pill from Peng Ye were all absorbed by him. He obviously felt the aura in his danshan churning. Looked inside and found that the aura inside was no longer just a trace, but became a ball the size of a thumb, floating like cotton wool. There was a glimmer of light in his eyes, overjoyed, and quickly opened the data. Cultivation, middle stage of Qi training, 47/100, the pill really works. Yang did not easily smile, and then took out the low-grade spirit stone and thought about it. He is considering whether to use it. These days, he also learned from the world of common cultivation that a middle-grade spiritual stone is worth 100 lower-grade spiritual stones. But almost no one wants to exchange middle-grade spirit stones for lower-grade spirit stones, because the aura content and purity of the two are too different. If his cultivation base breaks through to the second level of Qi training, the level of the glass bowl will increase accordingly. If he can cultivate spirit stones by that time, then he will make a lot of money. The 1-year limited time has been fixed, and the lingxi is the same for morning use and evening use. He thought about it, his eyes flickered, and he simply put away the spirit stone. A month and a half passed again from such a peaceful day. During the period, Yang Bai spent the rest of his time cultivating apart from going to the elixir field. He will stop and rest until the meridians are sore after the exercises are running. And he didn't let go of the rest time, so he used it all to watch Elixir of the Era and the World of Common Cultivation. In 2 months, he also read these 2 books again, and his knowledge has grown too much. At the same time, his cultivation has reached the peak of Qi training level. Because at the beginning of the month, Chun Feng summoned him to receive 1 month's training materials, and all 10 Reiki pills were refined by him. In the past 2 days, he tried to break through the barrier, but the barrier only vibrated, and there was no sign of breaking open. This made him frown. He knew that although the aura in the danshan was full, it was not pure enough. If it is to be purified, it is estimated that it will take a lot of time. Once the spiritual energy is purified, half of the danshan is vacant, and the other half of the danshan needs to be refined through the spiritual roots. But he has seen the cultivation speed of inferior spirit roots. If there is no time for 2 or 3 months, he will definitely not be able to fill the other half of the danshan. He thought of the spirit stone, but the only piece of spirit stone he was going to use to impact the 3rd level of Qi training, and he was also planning to break through the 2nd level of Qi training to see if it could be cultivated into a middle grade spiritual stone. For the time being, he didn't want to use. Knowing that the aura in the danshan is not pure enough, he doesn't choose to purify it. Yang Bai also knew that he was taking tricks and fooling himself in practice, but he had to do this. There is only one reason. He wants to reach the 2nd level of Qi training as quickly as possible, and then reach the 3rd level of Qi training 10 months later, even if the foundation of his own cultivation is unstable. Weigh the pros and cons. Yang Bai also sighed, it would be great if there was a barrier-breaking pill. But there was no if. He shook his head, gritted his teeth fiercely, and chose a more extreme barrier-breaking method. Take fireweed grass. If anyone knew what he was thinking, they would be shocked and unbelievable. Because fireweed is a poisonous weed, after taking it, it will endure pain like a burning fire. This pain not only has the pain of eating meat, but also paralyzes the nerves. If you are not careful, you will become an idiot. Although it is a poisonous weed. But Yang Bai saw such a record in the elixir book. Someone once ate the fireweed grass by mistake. Although it hurt so much, but the bottleneck that had been stuck for half a year was loosened, and he broke through the realm because of a blessing in disguise. Finally, a pharmacist researched and found that the fireweed grass contains a special energy, which has the effect of breaking barriers. And he worked hard to formulate an elixir that can neutralize the heat of the fireweed and the toxicity of the nerve paralysis, and the success rate of breaking the barrier is as high as 60%. As soon as this statement came out, some people took the risk to prepare spiritual liquid and took fireweed grass, hoping to find a chance for a breakthrough. But almost half of the people who tried it died alive. Even if they didn't die, they became idiots. And the other half really succeeded. Finally, the pharmacist came out to speak again. Said that the fireweed grass is a poisonous weed after all, and the spiritual liquid can only eliminate part of its toxicity. It is not great will, great perseverance, and people with a big heart. Don't take it. Yang is not easy to think that he is still persevering, and after thinking twice, he decides to take this risk. Coincidentally, there is fireweed grass in the elixir field, and the preparation method of the elixir is also recorded in the elixir book. Yang is not easy to be vigorous, so he made up his mind and immediately got up and walked to the elixir field. He can also take the elixir in the medicine field, but it needs to be reported. Soon came to the spiritual medicine field to look for green bark, purple pine, paulownia, yinstone fern, chicken vine, ground gall grass, ranunculus, southern candle, southern snake vine. Fortunately, all the 9 elixir for formulating elixir are available here. Yang did not breathe a sigh of relief easily, but when he took a closer look, his brows wrinkled deeply. Why are the ages of these elixir and fireweed grass different? The 9 kinds of elixir used to prepare the elixir must be the same as the age of the fireweed grass, and the prepared elixir can effectively neutralize the toxicity of the fireweed grass. 1 year, 3 years, 2 years, 6 years. The years are not the same, but there are all the elixir of 1 year, but the elixir of 1 year has no effect at all. Do you really want to go back to refine the spiritual stone, or obediently purify the spiritual energy? Yang Bai looked at the elixir of different ages in the medicinal field, and he couldn't help showing a hint of helplessness. Suddenly, he looked at him. Wait, there are all the elixir for a year, although the age is not up to the requirements, but, can I use a glass bowl to cultivate it? It must work, it must work. Yang Bai thought of this suddenly, and couldn't help but get excited. When he was in the superintendent of handyman, he had cultivated medicinal materials, and he cultivated medicinal materials of 1 year for 2 years, and now he can think about it. Yang is not easy to stay in the medicinal field. When 12 o'clock in the evening, once the cultivation energy is full, he holds a fiery red elixir in the soil and shouts, "Cultivate fireweed grass." Under cultivation successfully cultivated, 1 year firegrass is upgraded to 5-year firegrass. It's finished. Yang Bai looked at the 5-inch red grass with 5 leaves, and confirmed, no matter the height, number of leaves, and color are exactly the same as those described in the elixir book, this is a 5-year portion. Firegrass. He was a little excited and saw hope. The 10-patterned glass bowl also has 9 opportunities to cultivate other items, just in time to cultivate another 9 elixir. He originally thought that the improvement of the glass bowl level this time didn't seem to have a big effect, but he didn't expect to give him a surprise tonight. In the next 9 days, he concocted according to the law, and cultivated all the 9 elixir of the elixir into 5-year elixir. And I went to the kitchen that night, mashed it all up, and boiled it into 5 drops of blue liquid medicine. Inside the room, Yang couldn't easily pour all 5 drops of the cyan liquid medicine into the wooden bucket filled with clear water. The clear water inside suddenly turned to grass green, and it rose with white mist. Yang couldn't easily take a deep breath. His whole body entered the wooden barrel, his body suddenly tightened, and the cyan liquid medicine was so cold as if he had entered an ice cellar. He settled, and reached out his hand to take the fiery red grass on the wooden table with flame patterns on the leaves. Feeling the warm energy coming from it, he took a deep breath, broke a small leaf, and absorbed it in his mouth. Immediately, he closed his eyes abruptly, and he started to work so slowly. Fire grass, ordinary people can't avoid it, he actually took it, and wanted to break the pubic barrier in this way. The pharmacist was right. At this moment, Yang Bai was suffering from the flames. A face became flushed, and his whole body was steaming hot, as if he had practiced 9 suns. The liquid medicine inside instantly boiled, fist-sized splashes of water continued to boil, accompanied by bursts of white smoke, and the two colors of red and green intersect, like Tai Chi. Yang Bai's complexion is unpredictable, or painful, intense, calm, or distorted. His forehead is covered with fine sweat, and his body is trembling slightly. It is obvious that he is suffering from inhuman suffering. The scorching energy contained in the fireweed grass flows in the body like magma, burning his meridians and flesh. At this moment, the time has passed so long, it seems that every minute and every second has become a year. Fortunately, although Yang Bai's body trembled slightly and his face was painful, he didn't even make a muffled hum. He showed no signs of madness. Because the spiritual liquid also rose with a faint white mist, the cool energy continued to penetrate into his body to compete with the burning energy, maintaining a delicate balance. Half an hour passed, an hour passed. The water in the barrel no longer boils, and the blue color disappears completely. At the same time, the burning sensation in Yang Bai's body suddenly dropped, and a warm energy was born. He immediately controlled this energy and rushed towards the Danshan barrier. The Danshan barrier became warm, and after only a few dozen breaths, there was a feeling of melting ice and snow, and the barrier softened. Yang is not easy to pinch the tactics, and the aura that controls the Danshan suddenly rushes around. There was a slight sound like the sound of nature, and the Danshan barrier broke open under the impact of spiritual energy. Danshan instantly reached 10 inches. Yang didn't open his eyes suddenly, and a gleam of light burst out of his eyes like lightning. He clenched his fists fiercely, and said one word at a time, training the second level of Qi, it is finally done. However, I really don't want to endure this kind of pain. But in order to stay at the 5 elements peak, in order to obtain more training resources, I have to endure this kind of pain, and I have no choice. Yang did not easily wipe off the fine sweat on his forehead with joy, firmness, and fear. Checked his slightly bad body, and he smiled bitterly, the meridians are hot, I'm afraid it will take a few days to recover. Fortunately, you have paid for it, or you will lose a lot. At noon the next day. The sun is warm and the weather is nice. Yang couldn't easily use up his food, and sat quietly on the stone in front of the hall to bask in the sun to recover his body. A breeze blew in, and a small wind was rolled up in front of his eyes, and the dead leaves inside were spinning in the sky, as light as an immortal. The wind left, and the dead leaves fell again. Yang didn't look at this scene interestingly, and his heart moved, and he called out a hint of aura from his body. With a flick of his right hand, his spiritual energy shoots out like a thread, and a dead leaf in front of his eyes is taken into his hand, and as his fingers change, he dances at his fingertips. The subject was taken in the sky, and the dead leaves were light. This simple hand reveals Yang Bai's extraordinary accomplishments in using aura. This is also due to his extraordinary understanding, and his ability to comprehend water exercises 7 or 88, so that he can do whatever he wants. One more slice. Yang is not easy to play, and with a flick of his left hand, a hint of aura pops out, and again he took a picture of a dead leaf. He controlled the dead leaves to fight with both hands, you come and I go, in a fierce place, 2 dead leaves collided, suddenly turned into powder and scattered, and the 2 auras also collapsed. Junior brother is so adept at hand controlling things, he's almost catching up to me. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang behind him. Yang Bai suddenly turned around and smiled, brother, you are out, congratulations, congratulations. Tongzi, Tongzi, it seems that the younger brother has also broken through to the second level of Qi training, yes, yes. Li Yuran walked slowly with a smile, and he could see that he looked very good, and he had obviously succeeded in breaking through to the 10th level of Qi training. He looked at the dead leaf powder scattered on the ground, and asked in a puzzled way, brother, why don't you control the 2 auras of the dead leaves in your body, but let them disperse? I wanted to collect them, but they suddenly collapsed. Yang said difficultly. Isn't it enough to get together? I can't get together. Yang Bai smiled awkwardly. Can't get together? Your spiritual control skills have already entered the room. How can you not get together? Li Yuan asked in confusion. I don't know. Yang Bai shook his head, and then asked, Brother, can the aura that I export can be recycled again? Didn't you feel the aura that you exported yourself? Li Yuan was surprised, staring at Yang Bai for 3 breaths, and suddenly said, could the aura in your body be obtained by taking a pill and haven't undergone spiritual root transformation? Exactly, how did the brother know? Yang Bai was taken aback. No wonder. Li Yuan suddenly said, if the aura obtained by taking the pill is not transformed by the spiritual root, it lacks a trace of spirituality. Although this aura is relatively pure, it is a dead aura. And the auras cultivated through spiritual roots have a trace of spirituality, and are branded with a personal brand. These auras will belong to you in theory forever. As long as the brand in the aura is not obliterated, they can be collected no matter how they disintegrate after being swung out. Come back. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. The aura contained in the aura pill is purer than the aura that travels between the heavens and the earth, which is equivalent to a weakened version of the spiritual stone. After we take it, we usually transform it through the spiritual root and get our own brand. And some people are blindfolded by the benefits in front of them, and they are eager for quick success. They will not waste time to transform. The cultivation base obtained in this way is said to be true, but it is not true. They are bound to themselves, and one day they will be unable to move. Relying on foreign objects to break through the early stage is smooth, but it will leave drawbacks. In the later stage, this drawback will become bigger and bigger, and it will become extremely difficult to break through a small realm in the end. This is also the reason why the cultivator who breaks through with foreign objects is always weaker than the cultivator who breaks through his own practice. Only those who know that they have no hope of breaking through will choose to break through with drugs. Li Yuan seemed to think of something, and said again. However, there is also a person in this world who is not restricted from taking pills, and that is the owner of the innate spiritual root. The innate spiritual root can transform the aura obtained by taking the pill on its own, and put it on its own brand. However, there are so many in this world. Innate spiritual roots. Li Yuan sighed, looked at Yang Bai, and solemnly said, the 10,000 Zhang Tower starts from the foundation, and you must practice one step at a time. Quickly, that is the magic way. Brother, you must remember. Thank you, brother, for your teaching. A dignified look appeared on Yang Bai's face. Li Yuan's words shook his ears and awakened him. It turns out that there are so many taboos and exquisites when taking pill medicine. Killing medicine? 2 of his newly defined nouns came out of his mind subconsciously. It is not advisable to kill the medicine, but he has to do it at this moment. Seeking collection, seeking recommendation ticket. Yang Bai thought that he could create a great road to the sky, but after listening to Li Yuan's words, he realized that the water was very deep along the way. In the end, it turns out that it still needs to be transformed through the spiritual root to get his own brand. This is called a living medicine. But at this stage, he is not going to transform through spiritual roots, it is still necessary to die with medicine. Even if he knows this is the way to get faster, he still has to do it. The next 2 days were very calm. Because of the damage to the meridians, he can't practice for the time being. Yang Bai is all training, and more is learning from Li Yuan. Li Yuan saw that he didn't know much about cultivation. He was very concerned and eagerly pulled him for fear that he would go astray, telling him some basic common sense in cultivation. While sitting opposite each other as a friend, he taught in the manner of a brother. He is kind, elegant and easygoing, teaches by precepts and deeds, without the slightest pretensions. As a 10th level master of Qi training, he is approachable, he is not as high-stretched as others, and he is very amiable, like spring weather and rain, making Yang Bai very heartwarming. Yang Bai is not a fool. From Li Yuan's pupils, one can see the sincerity and innocence without the slightest benefit. He didn't say this affection, but he remembered it deeply. After 2 days, the basic knowledge of cultivation has been known 7 or 8. At this moment, he is regarded as a veritable cultivator. In the night, Yang is not easy to mobilize a trace of spiritual energy to slowly flow through the meridians to check the damage. If an ordinary person suffers from such a burn, it is estimated that it will take 10.5 days to recover. And his meridians and body are nourished by spiritual energy, and he has recovered 90% within a few days. Yang Bai was very satisfied, his brows eased. Tomorrow I should be able to continue practicing. He took back the aura from the meridians, and opened up his personal data. Name, Yang Bai Cultivation, early stage of the second layer of Qi training, 3/100, Gong method, Tiger boxing, Ling Ling Ju, water movement Ju glass bowl level, 11 patterns culture, inferior Van Pin Ling root, 0.196/100, progress of cultivating energy accumulation, 100%. The cultivation base reaches the second level of Qi training, and the spiritual root cultivation efficiency has also reached 0.006, which has doubled, and the cultivation base of the death drug breakthrough does not seem to be all bad. Yang smiled unsatisfactorily, his eyes a little hopeful. I don't know if the efficiency of spiritual root cultivation can be doubled when it reaches the third level of Qi training. If it can. He seemed to see a shining low-grade mortal roots coming soon. Beautifully fantasizing, he put away the data. He did experiments in the past 2 days. Although the level of the glass bowl has reached 11 patterns, it still can't cultivate spiritual stones and exercises. It seems that it can only cultivate some relatively low-age elixir. As for the Reiki pill, he has used up all of it, and I don't know if he can cultivate it. After thinking for a while, he slowly withdrew his mind, his eyes swept boredly, and suddenly glanced at the cyan bag on the wooden table. When his eyes lit up, he stretched out his hand and took it. I am busy practicing these days, but I have forgotten the existence of the storage bag. I have nothing to do at the moment, so I can get familiar with it. Yang did not easily recall what senior brother Li had said before, letting out part of his spiritual consciousness to cover it, and then slowly showing a trace of aura. As soon as aura fell on the storage bag, it melted into it, and then, the divine sense attached to the storage bag was pulled in by a force of suction. Yang Bai's visual senses suddenly came to a closed space with his divine consciousness, which was not dark, and was similar to the light in the room. This enclosed space the size of a table is the world in the storage bag. His eyes flickered, and he looked at it curiously, feeling very magical. Looked at it for a moment. The next moment, he separated part of his spiritual knowledge falling on the spirit stone, and his mind moved. Brush. The spirit stone in his hand is gone, and looking at the storage bag, there is a fist-sized spirit stone. When he watched this scene with a little excitement, a repulsive force suddenly appeared in the storage bag, which instantly squeezed out his consciousness. A trace of aura can only last for a few breaths. Yang is not easy nor surprised, obviously he has learned this knowledge from senior brother Li these days. Then again wielded a trace of spiritual energy, following the same method, including the mysterious spirit sword. Then took them all out again. Do this several times. Yang couldn't easily touch his storage bag, and his inspiration flashed, and all the spiritual stones and profound spirit swords on the table were put into it by him. Then he stopped his hands with satisfaction. The storage bag is really a treasure, but the space is a bit smaller. Yang Bai smiled, and his phobia of insufficient firepower was also passed on to the storage bag. He touched the storage bag, his eyes stopped suddenly. That's right. Taking advantage of today's cultivation energy has not been used, try whether the storage bag and the profound spirit sword can be cultivated. Thought in his heart, he immediately started to try. The result is not surprising, it can't be cultivated. But he firmly believes that these things can be cultivated successfully one day, and once this opening is opened, it will be the beginning of his rise. Because these things are very valuable, in his eyes they are all spiritual stones and pills for cultivation. He put down his storage bag, calmed down, adjusted his breath and meditated. Early the next morning, with the first rays of sunlight shining into the room, Yang did not easily open his eyes. A bright glow shoots out, sweeping away the decadence of recent days. The eyes are full of vigor and spirit. After 3 days, the meridians finally recovered completely. He wiped the storage bag with one hand and held the spirit stone in his hand. Since it is still not possible to cultivate spirit stones, he decisively refining and absorbing them, hitting the 3rd level of Qi training. Quickly entered the cultivation state. Once the exercise was activated, the spiritual stone melted slightly like a snowball, and a thin white mist appeared on the surface. These mists are spiritual Qi. As the exercise moves, it enters the meridians through the spiritual roots, undergoes refining in the week, and then falls into the danshan. The first aura absorbed from the spirit stone has just entered the danshan, the original aura instantly blasted away, automatically making room for it. Then rushed towards it, surrendering around it like a courtier, and surrounding it. This scene was immediately noticed by Yang Bai. He was a little surprised, and immediately called it out, jumping between his fingers, looking closely. Then he brought out a trace of the aura obtained from taking the pill and the aura that was refining and absorbed from the air. The former is as translucent as water, and the impurities in the middle are clumped, which looks a little mixed, while the latter is turbid. The 3 levels of purity from high to low are Lingxi aura, pill aura, and cultivation aura. The 3 contrasted, his eyes converged to a point in an instant, and a deep astonishment appeared on his face, and he couldn't help but cried out, "The spiritual energy absorbed from the spirit stone is crystal clear." Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com is like crystal, so pure. With a flick of his finger, he lashed out the aura he had obtained from taking the medicine pill. Hey! The spiritual energy collided with the slate, sparks splashed, but the spiritual energy also broke into 3 pieces. Like aura is broken. He immediately popped out the spiritual energy he had cultivated. Hey! A crushed white spot the size of a pinhole was left on the stone slab, which was very eye-catching. But the spiritual Qi in cultivation is even more unbearable, and it disintegrates directly, turning into a small spiritual mist. Fortunately, it is self-cultivation and it has induction. While he waved his hand, he merged the spiritual fog again and absorbed it into his body. Yang did not easily look at the last trace of aura in his hand, suddenly popped out, anxious like a flying sword, sneer. There was a little spark, and the slate left marks, but the spiritual energy did not break, and the waste bent and bounced back. Yang did not easily make a backhand move, taking it into his hand, and a deep joy appeared in his eyes. The pure aura is indeed stronger in all aspects than the complex aura. If you can refine the spiritual stones every day in the future, you will get twice the result with half the effort and save too much effort. Although he knew that the spiritual energy in the spirit stone was pure, he didn't know that it was so pure. It's no wonder that spirit stones will become the trading currency of the cultivation world. A low-grade spirit stone contains such pure auras, so how pure the auras contained in a middle-grade spirit stone and even the highest-grade spirit stone should be. If I could obtaining a top-quality spiritual stone, I am afraid that you can easily break through the danshan barrier without having to refine the aura in the danshan all the way. There is a touch of enthusiasm in his eyes. At this moment, his love for Lingxi is deeply rooted in his heart, leaving an indelible mark. Flipped his hand to collect the spiritual energy into his body, and he continued to refine the spiritual stone.